Hello, welcome to Laura's Painting Minis. I am Laura and we're starting a new mini today. I think it might have been like a hyena or something, but it is from the Bones 6 Kickstarter. Gonna paint it up just as like kind of a taking inspiration from a Yes Hound, because I'm gonna use it for that. It's the closest thing I have. But I'll stick with kind of a brownish color scheme. That way it can still be used for like a hyena or just a general fantasy hound of some sort. This is just walnut brown base coating it in. Got to play a little bit of D&D last night, so that was kind of fun. With my Fathomless Warlock. There's like, it's a pretty big group. There's like 8 of us playing. So it can be kind of hard to get a lot done, you know? But it's still fun. Does make things probably hard for the GM to try and have hard enough encounters. But he's pretty experienced, so Okay. Nope. Kind of waiting on that to dry. I'll still go do like so like yes hounds typically have these red eyes, so I'll still do that. So that would be the only thing that would be kind of a little odd if you used it as like a regular hyena or hound. Of course, you could just say, well, it's it's a fantasy campaign, so who cares? I'm waiting to go ahead and put socials in chat. The last video of the female genie paint along went up Tuesday. I do not have her nearby. I think I put her out in the living room display shelves. And I started working on a werebear for the next paint along. So, which if you head over to the Patreon and join at either tier, you can get that access to that a week ahead of time before it goes up on the YouTubes. And there's also some other like random content that I've made over the last year or two. Forget how long now I've had the Patreon. Right, there's enough spots that are dry. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next layer. I want to keep this darker, so I'm going to working on my be technically the values. Going light to dark is technical term of values, so that I can keep more contrast. It's definitely something I can struggle with sometimes. Which I think part of my problem is I will tend to end up covering up too much of like a shadow color. I'm usually pretty good about making sure my mid-tone doesn't get covered up. It was kind of like the main feedback I was able to get on that. It was for the paint job I submitted for the recent Reaper 90-day challenge. The Isabel and Rufus. I've since posted it on my Instagram for sure, which automatically posts to my Facebook too. So if you're on one of those, and have looked at it this week, you've probably already seen it. My Isabel and Rufus kind of made her to be kind of like a punk bard, if that rings any bells. It was a fun mini. There's definitely a lot of details, so it's not great if you are a beginner and want to be able to paint all of the details and not just, you know, block in some things with just black or really dark brown or whatever you can't paint well. Because you can't just do that if you're really a beginner skill level, and so you're not going to be able to have the brush control to like do a bunch of details. You can pick out the things that you do have good enough skills to paint and just go over the other stuff with really dark color. It can be black, or it can just be like, even the walnut brown that I use for the base coat of this, pretty dark. That would work too. It's not going to win you any, it's probably not going to win you any contests, but at least you won't be driving yourself insane if you're a beginner and trying to do something that has a lot of detail. And so this color I've gotten now, it's like a drop of walnut brown, and then there's saddle brown mix. It's like probably 3 drops of saddle brown. So yeah, I got some really helpful feedback on that, which it kind of was some stuff that I already knew that I struggle with, but they gave me some specific tips for maybe ways to practice um, building up kind of a better idea of contrast, essentially contrast. Which is the whole values thing. Gonna like looking up on Color Wheel or looking into color theory. I haven't done anything. I've just been kind of like processing what, because they went pretty good detail. Um, and then also just asking another painter on the Reaper stream too about it. And they gave some tips too that just more of just like tips than like a way to go out and practice. Because like mentioning that, if you want something to be dark or basically, whatever color, whether and whatever darkness or brightness you want that color to look like when you're painting a mini, you need 50% of that whatever area that's taking up to be that color. With black being an exception where you want even more of it, more than 50% to be black, so that it will look black, otherwise it will look gray. Alright, cool. So we got some stuff. It's a good start on that. And it may be where I need to, even though I've tried it before and didn't really like it, like I felt like I was struggling to get darks in, shadows in well enough. But it could be where maybe I need to just take the time to learn to do starting with a mid-tone first instead of the really dark color, or what I would use as a darkest shadow, and just paint that in after. Um, that is a valid method or order of doing things, to base coat with like your mid-tone color, and then so basically the color you want it to look like, really is pretty close. Um, and then paint in the shadows and highlights. I'm not worrying too much about blending things looking blended right now. So if you're just kind of sitting there going like, oh my gosh, it's not blended at all. Not worried about that right now. I think it's easy to get caught up in the I gotta have it looking perfectly, just perfect right away, and that's just not reality. It's not the reality for probably at least 99.999% of people. Maybe there's someone out there who can like sit down and paint and it just comes out perfectly. All right, we'll see about this. Got one more layer I'm doing, one more highlight, and we'll see where we're at here. Probably will then do a glaze with, I might mix. I'll probably do mostly walnut brown and put a touch of that saddle brown in. It'll help knock it down to looking dark, like a dark brown. But doing a glaze, you'll still be able to, it'll tint it so that you can still see the highlights. It'll help with blending, making it look more blended. Might have been a little too much there, but we will see. Did not mean to put anything there. You catch it right away and get some water on it. You should be able to just take a clean brush and wipe it right away. As long as you're working with water-based paints. This could definitely be thinned down more, but that is okay. At least I feel that it is very strong, but as I've already said, I can tend to not get enough contrast. So it might be okay that I'm feeling like it's too much. Sorry, just trying to work on my glaze. I want to start with like just a light glaze. All right. And I'm just gonna do it all over. Pretty much. You can see the difference already from where I've put on the glaze to this side, how it just tints it. So that's already looking a lot more blended. I'm going to come back in with, this is the second shadow, just a little bit. Just to help with blending a bit more. feel like some of it also too, as far as like growing and becoming a better painter, is also growing in kind of like patience muscles, having patience to sit. I mean, like, it's been about 40 minutes and just working on the just the skin a lot. People who've been painting for years and years and years, decades even, they've they've learned that, they understand that, and are okay with that. That takes time, maybe. Even for people who would be like speed painters, it's probably realistic to say that, like, there's things that still take them more time than what they used to spend time on doing, and it looks better because they do. Wet blending is also completely valid to help get some better blends. You're going to lose your darkest that is especially where it's easy to when it's easy to lose the darkest and lightest colors, darkest shadow, highest highlight. You're gonna lose those. You're not gonna be able to get those by while you're wet blending. So you're definitely gonna have to go back after it's dry and just kind of add in those. It really does help a lot. Having a really good brush that keeps its tip with things like this. And then also actually taking care of the brush. Just kind of stirring up my glaze, stirring it back up. See how this looks after doing all that. It's mainly just this part where I was kind of just now, in the last several minutes, kind of trying to blend. Back out, see how it looks. So yeah. Still looks dark, but there's definitely, you know, definition and highlights. Another way to double check that I do not do very often, I probably should do since I know that I need to work on contrasts, is to take a picture of this and then, you know, whatever it is you use, Instagram, whatever, that has filters. I mean, I think even smartphones tend to have them. Pretty sure mine has this. If I go into edit mode, and get, just try and choose like a, you know, one of the basic black and white filters, and that will show you right away if there's not enough contrast. Because, you know, the way this is sculpted, you can definitely kind of see the bone, the rib cage. So if I go and put this and put it through a black and white, if I'm not seeing that enough, then I'm not getting enough. That means I'm not getting enough contrast. And that was actually one of the suggestion, was to go and study black and white photos, actually. I'm going to keep kind of futzing with this just because this is just going to be used on a tabletop though, so I mean, I'm not going to do this to the whole mini. It's just, you know, fresh on my mind, so I'm kind of just seeing if I can kind of just immediately try some things that are in my mind while the feedback is still kind of fresh. I copied it and emailed it to myself though too, so that I don't like lose it. Yeah, I definitely need to. This is definitely not thinned down enough. So I would say this is pretty typical for what I would probably like stop at and how I would come out. And it's still, I mean, like that's still pretty good, you know. It's decent. It's still probably above tabletop standard. I mean, you can still kind of make out that there are ribs there, but that's the thing is it's you can kind of make out. Do another glaze over this. That probably needs to be where we stop. Can keep kind of messing around a bit more. But I mean, you can already kind of see, even with that added extra glaze, we're getting more details to kind of pop. So, yeah, it's just one of those things you kind of have to get used to if you're like me and you're kind of, you feel like this is really high for highlights, you know. This is probably still getting knocked down a bit too much. But it's definitely, I think we're getting into the right direction where things are pretty well blended, getting blended really well, and getting things to be highlighted enough, as well as having not losing our shadows either. So yeah, but that's where we're gonna stop for today, especially when you get the light on it. Yeah. Monday, we'll be back with the were rats. So got more M&M to do. We had two that are done-ish. I think I could still probably do some tweaking on them to really get more contrast on those. But they, you know, got a decent start. But yep. Hope you have a good weekend, and I will see you Monday. All right. Bye.